Good day and welcome. More than 150 journalists bring you around-the-clock coverage of events in Germany and around the world. Today we delve into a remarkable turn of events in Davos, a stock market tremor in New York, and a surprisingly unified Europe. Donald Trump's escalation regarding Greenland has, for the first time, revealed the true limits of his power. And when Donald Trump stood before the global elite in Davos on Wednesday, a particular sentence nearly went unnoticed. The United States president complained, quote, "Our stock market experienced an initial downturn yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland has already cost us a lot of money," unquote. He then dismissed these losses as peanuts compared to the gains expected from a supposed deal. Of course, President Trump, in that moment, confused Iceland with Greenland. But at that point, his focus had shifted beyond mere geography. It was about the market's reaction to what became the most severe diplomatic crisis between the United States and its North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies in recent history. While this crisis is not fully resolved, the American president clearly felt compelled to de-escalate, at least for now. So, what lessons can be drawn from this approximately two-week period of politically and economically costly agitation? President Trump's Greenland initiative followed a familiar pattern. He escalated rhetorically, threatened European allies with punitive tariffs, and openly linked United States security guarantees to territorial concessions. With this move, the president aimed to demonstrate strength. However, instead, President Trump triggered something he clearly underestimated. Denmark unequivocally refused any negotiations regarding its sovereignty. Germany and 7 other nations, at Denmark's invitation, dispatched small troop contingents to Greenland, a move that apparently provoked the United States president even further. He then threatened new tariffs against these 8 European nations. It was at this moment, if not earlier, that it became clear the time had come to show the Trump administration the consequences of its aggression. Diplomats in Washington, Berlin, and Brussels unanimously declared, quote, "Enough is enough," unquote. The European response was united and determined enough to generate significant economic repercussions. Rhetorically, however, they remained measured, aiming to offer President Trump a face-saving exit. The European Union did not react with panic, but openly prepared comprehensive countermeasures in the trade sector. Simultaneously, North Atlantic Treaty Organization states diplomatically converged, collectively rejecting President Trump's arguments. This unity appears to have been crucial. President Trump's political method, particularly concerning Europe, relies on dividing his opponents, but this time he failed. The consequences of this dynamic immediately became apparent in the financial markets. United States stocks experienced one of the sharpest sell America days in months. Investors began pricing in a very real risk, not just punitive tariffs, but a potential rupture of the transatlantic alliance itself. Bonds came under pressure, the dollar weakened, and even traditionally patient foreign buyers of United States government bonds began to reconsider their holdings. For example, the Danish pension fund announced its intention to sell its United States government bonds. This step, however, was said not to be directly related to the ongoing tensions between the United States and Europe, but rather to the high national debt of the United States. Nevertheless, the investment director Anders Schelde noted that the tensions certainly did not make the decision more difficult. This, apparently, was the language President Trump understood best and could not simply ignore. The markets achieved what diplomatic appeals alone could not. On the United States Stock Exchange, it became evident. For his foreign policy escalation, President Trump immediately paid a domestic political price. This pressure was further intensified by developments within the United States. Republican senators openly warned that threats against North Atlantic Treaty Organization partners over Greenland endangered core United States security interests. According to United States media reports, the president's own people even threatened him with a possible impeachment process should he pursue any military actions against Greenland that would destroy the decades-old defense alliance. And polls also showed that approximately 70% of Americans oppose using government funds to acquire Greenland. Even 86% reject the use of military force. These figures would likely worsen in the event of a trade war with Europe, the costs of which would largely be borne by American consumers. President Trump's approval ratings have steadily declined in recent days, particularly regarding economic competence. Even within the administration, concern reportedly grew that President Trump's fixation on Greenland was undermining other foreign policy goals and increasingly isolating the United States. Calming statements from President Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who had arrived in Davos a day earlier, hinted at this. He publicly appealed to Europeans, quote, "Take a deep breath, do not retaliate," unquote. Chen added, "To this is a still pending decision from the highest American court regarding President Trump's tariff policy. It is possible that the Supreme Court justices will not agree with the administration's arguments. President Trump claims he can impose tariffs without congressional approval due to a perceived national security threat, as he deems appropriate. Should the president lose this case, the main pillar of his unconventional economic policy would simply collapse. A decision on this is expected at the end of February. The central lesson from this chaos is clear. President Trump has not abandoned his Greenland ambitions, but he must now put them aside for the time being, not because he has politically or strategically reevaluated them. He retreated because a unified European response triggered economic consequences that limited his room for maneuver. President Trump gained nothing. However, he was still given the platform in Davos to deliver a boastful speech full of new attacks and threats against Europeans. This is an opportunity President Trump knows how to utilize. For his own supporters, he ultimately sold a supposed agreement as his success, consistently ignoring questions about the details of the as-yet unnegotiated Greenland deal. And it shows that Europe was not helpless in this situation. By remaining steadfast, coordinating policy, and allowing the markets to exert a disciplinary effect, they decisively contributed to temporarily ending the escalation spiral. Strategic unity, combined with economic leverage, can evidently compel a transactional United States president to back down. Stay tuned for more updates on this developing story. This video was generated using artificial intelligence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you next time.